Hello and good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. We are the Pleasant Valley Community Network. We are a bipartisan community group at our hosting tonight's candidate forum. While we did extend an invitation to all candidates this evening and committee chairs, we understand some had other obligations that prevented them from being here, which we understand, and we want to thank the candidates who are here tonight to participate, and we thank those who aren't able to be here for sending statements. At this time, I would ask everyone to please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We would also like to thank all the community members that wrote in and submitted questions or also filled out the cards at the Pleasant Valley Library, and thank the Pleasant Valley Library for partnering with us on that initiative. Tonight, I'd like to introduce our moderator for the event is Mr. Fred Schaefer. He is our current town historian, past chamber president, and a former Pleasant Valley Town Zoning and Planning Board member. He's known throughout the Hudson Valley for his continuous work on the Walkway Over the Hudson project and for his books on the area. We thank him for his time this evening. Mr. Schaefer is also not associated with the Pleasant Valley Community Network. We just want to let everyone know that. I would also like to thank our timekeeper, Jessica, and our videographer, Dave, for being here tonight to make this event possible, and thanks Steve and Megan Borland for letting us use their space this evening. Finally, before I turn the mic over to Mr. Schaefer to introduce our candidates, I would ask that we take a moment of silence to remember Dutchess County Sheriff Mr. Butch Anderson. His recent passing is a sad loss for our community, and our thoughts are with his friends and family during this difficult time. Thank you. As a reminder, there's no personal recording of this event. The event is being live streamed on our Facebook page, and the recorded video will be shared afterwards. Prior to this recording, candidates drew numbers to assign speaking order, and we will go backwards for closing statements. If you haven't already, everyone in the room, please silence your cell phones. Thank you, and I turn these to Mr. Fred Schaefer.
Thank you, Laura. I'm pleased to be here, and I look forward to talking to our candidates here about the status of Pleasant Valley and what your plans are for its future. So at this time, I'm going to introduce all the candidates. We first have the Frank Mazzella is running for town board. Supervisor, I'm sorry. Mrs. Mary Albrecht running for town board. Mike Reifenberg running for town board. And Mrs. Carol Campbell is running for town board. We also have the county legislators, Dan Deegan and Danny Hudnick. Running for town justice, Michael Kozak. Okay, at this time, we're going to start with the questions for the town board members and the supervisor.
We're going to do statement first, right? Ramos.
Okay. Each candidate will have a maximum of 1 minute to present an opening statement and is asked to introduce themselves and state the position they are running for. There will be up to 2 minutes to answer questions and 1 minute for a closing statement from each candidate, which should be related to matters covered at the forum. The timekeeper will hold up signs signaling candidates 1 minute remains when 30 seconds remain, and when stop is held up, that means the candidate must stop. Candidates are expected to respect and comply with time limits, as they will be strictly enforced by the moderator. Okay, at this time we're going to have opening statements from each of the candidates. So the first candidate, Frank Mazzella, will talk to us, running for the town board.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Frank Mazzella. I'm running for town supervisor. I've decided to run for town supervisor this year because I moved to Pleasant Valley in 2013. My wife and I opened the print shop, which is actually directly below us tonight, and we've really put all of our eggs into Pleasant Valley. Pleasant Valley is a great place for us to raise our 11-year-old who loves soccer. I love coaching Pleasant Valley U12, and Pleasant Valley is a great place for families to grow, and we need to make Pleasant Valley or keep Pleasant Valley affordable through the proper uses of our taxes to keep it affordable. So, and that's all I have. I guess I'm thinking I'm running out of time. Oh.
Okay, this time our second speaker is going to be Dan Deegan, who is running for the county legislature.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. Yep, Dan Deegan, running for county legislator. So I've lived in Pleasant Valley for 14 years with my wife and 3 kids. They all attend the local schools, Traver, West Road, LMS. We feel tremendously lucky for the teachers that we've had in this community. I'm also a volunteer with Pleasant Valley Recreation, basketball and soccer, and volunteer locally at the food banks. I'm running because, frankly, I think a while ago Pleasant Valley settled. Pleasant Valley is good. Pleasant Valley can be great. Good enough is not good enough. I think we are leaving folks behind. I think we're letting our kids down. I think we're letting elderly folks down. And I think we can do more as a community. But first and foremost, I think one of the most important things I've learned in this campaign in 4 months is we have to start listening to each other. We got to start talking to each other. We got to work together. If we're not careful and if we don't start considering other people's opinions, we won't have a community. We won't have a country to argue over. So that's been my biggest lesson here, and that's the biggest thing I'm going to fight for. We got to work together as human beings in this community, because if we do, we will make it great. Thank you.
Okay, our third speaker will be Mrs. Mary Albrecht, who is running for town board.
Good evening. My name is Mary Albrecht, and I have called beautiful Pleasant Valley my home for most of my life. My husband and I own and have operated an auto repair shop in the town of Pleasant Valley for the past 34 years. We have 2 amazing sons, one of which recently has given us a wonderful daughter-in-law, and one who proudly served in the military. We are very proud of their accomplishments. Today, I am running with 4 wonderful and capable candidates, all of whom belong to different political parties with different views and are willing to listen to make decisions together for the people of our town. I understand that my position as a councilwoman is not just being at a meeting and showing up twice a month. It is to be there, to be out communicating with our town to effectively meet the needs of our town. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mary. The fourth speaker tonight is Mike Reifenberg, who's running for the town board also.
Good evening. Michael Reifenberg, candidate for the town board. As someone who has called Pleasant Valley home for most of my life, I'm proud to say I live here. I grew up participating in Pleasant Valley soccer at West Road, catching trout at Huck Finn Day, and I was a Cub Scout in Pack 93 and went on to become an Eagle Scout with Troop 37. It is time for me to give back to this great community and to make sure we have a voice at the town hall. As a registered independent, my entire life has been focused around people and not parties. Over the past 2 years, I've made it my mission to learn as much as I can about our town in order to start representing you on day one. I currently volunteer on many boards and committees. I promised, if elected, I'll be transparent, nonpartisan, and honest. I will listen and respect every member of our community, and I want to thank you for watching and participating in your local government and learning about your candidates tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Our fifth speaker is running for the county legislature, Danny Hudnick.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. I'm honored to be with you tonight. Again, my name is Danny Hutnick, and I'm running for county legislator in District 25, right up alongside District 2 with Dan Deegan. I'm a certified school social worker working with preschool through high school students and families in our district. And I'm a proud future parent in our community. I'm running on protecting our children and our aging community members' futures, both through quality education and care in schools, community service centers, and the local government, i.e. this position that I am running for. Again, thank you for this time, and I'm looking forward to getting to know more and more of my neighbors. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Danny. The sixth speaker is Michael Kozak, who's running for town justice.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Schaefer, and thanks to the Pleasant Valley Community Network for hosting this event, and to my fellow candidates. My name is Michael Kozak. I am one of the 2 town justices for the town of Pleasant Valley. I've served in that position since October of 2020 when I was appointed after one of the previous justices resigned. I volunteered for the position out of a sense of civic duty. I have served proudly as the town justice since then, handling regular court appearances in criminal matters, vehicle and traffic matters, small claims, and landlord tenant matters as well. And I've enjoyed the work quite well, trying to bring a sense of justice to everybody who has appeared before me. I ask for your vote in this upcoming election. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Our 7th speaker is Mrs. Carol Campbell, who is also running for the town board.
I want to give a special thank you to the Pleasant Valley Community Network for organizing this candidate forum. My name's Carol Campbell. I've been endorsed by the Dutchess County Conservative Party to run for town board. I'm a lifelong Pleasant Valley resident and former councilwoman and supervisor. After watching some of the decisions made by the current town board with regard to a tax increase, our zoning administrator and zoning laws, and letting the proposed town hall sit idle and stalling the water project, I decided that I wanted to bring my experience back to government and back to the town board. My number 1 priority is to work for our residents and to provide answers to their questions. I will govern with honesty and transparency, and because I'm the experienced candidate, I can start working for you on day 1. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll read the statements that were sent in by the candidates that couldn't be here today. The first comes from Darren Farley. He is in the Republican Party, Conservative Party, and Working Families are his endorsements, and he says, "Dear Pleasant Valley Community Network fellow candidates and voters, unfortunately I am unable to attend this forum. However, I have been having great experiences meeting the people of Pleasant Valley door to door. Here's the condensed story of how I got to your doorstep. In 2006, I began my legal career in Dutchess County as a litigation attorney, handling a wide variety of matters in our various types of courts throughout the Hudson Valley. In December 2019, the Surrogates Court Judge of Orange County selected me to become his principal law clerk. In that capacity, I write the court's decisions and orders and conduct court conferences and settlement conferences, perform the court's legal research, and act as a confidential legal advisor to the judge. Several of the decisions that I have written for the court have been selected for publication in the New York Law Journal and the New York State Law Reporting Bureau's official reports. My wife, Dr. Alyssa Farley, also began her career in the Hudson Valley in 2006. In 2012, we opened Creature Comforts Animal Hospital in the city of Poughkeepsie. After the birth of our son, Miles, in 2016, we moved to Pleasant Valley. Since then, I have served locally as a trustee on the PV Library Board of Trustees, as a member of the PV Republican Committee, and as a member of the PV Bicentennial Committee. As a result of my accomplishments and reputation in our local legal community, I have been endorsed for the office of Town Justice by Sheriff Butch Anderson, the New York State Supreme Court Officers Association, and the New York State Troopers PBA. I am happy to meet and speak with community members anytime. You can reach me via email or Facebook by visiting darrenfarley.com. And remember, vote local, vote Farley. Fairly. The second statement that was sent in is from Don Sagliano, Dutchess County Legislator, District 2. Mr. Sagliano writes, as a longtime Pleasant Valley resident and your county legislator, I serve to ensure that our Dutchess County government provides a place for our hardworking citizens to prosper and live fulfilling lives. I am proud to be a part of a governing body that welcomes and supports business ventures, especially local small businesses, and encourages job creation for our local community. During the pandemic, we made sure not to shift the financial burden to our taxpayers, and we are already now making smart recovery investments to strategically place Dutchess at the forefront of the economy's recovery. We have also lowered our tax rate for the past 7 consecutive years. In the legislature, I serve as the chairman of the Public Works Committee, which is tasked with overseeing our county infrastructure projects, including our roads, bridges, county parks, including Dutchess Stadium, and the Youth Opportunity Center to be built in the site of the former YMCA in Poughkeepsie. In tandem with my position on the County Industrial Development Agency, I work to provide new job creators with access to the infrastructure they need to hire local residents. I am also one of the board of directors for the Dutchess County Soil and Water Conservation District, focused on natural resource conservation in our community. I am also proud to serve as a board member of the Pleasant Valley Library, and we can all see that our rebuilt building will be the centerpiece of the town. As your Dutchess County legislator, I will continue to control spending and work aggressively to help implement shared service policies to consolidate and cut waste as we continue to recover from the effects of COVID-19. I understand the need and will work to find ways to provide more services and to do more with less, just like families and small businesses have been doing. Thank you. And I will now turn it back to our moderator, Fred Schaefer, to go into the questions for the candidates.
We are now going to ask questions of the candidates running for town board and supervisor. These questions have been originated from letters that were sent to this organization setting forth what their question is. So I'm going to read the question just as we received it. Pleasant Valley currently has more apartments per capita than any of our surrounding towns. Where do the candidates stand regarding town's current volume of apartments and adding any additional apartments in the future? So I'm going to start with the first speaker is Frank Mazzella.
Apartments. So this question really kind of boils back down to our comprehensive plan and what is right for the town of Pleasant Valley. The candidates that I'm running with, we've sat and long talked about a long plan for our town as far as where we see Pleasant Valley in the next 10 years. After talking, we realized that the town currently has no capital plan, no any other plan set forth for us really to accomplish that. So really, that's a big burden that we plan to take on next year. But how I'm connecting this is, as far as our comprehensive plan, as far as apartments per capita in Pleasant Valley, if the plan that we have currently allows it, then I don't see why I really don't. I don't see why we would, or how we would, why we would change that. You know what I mean? I guess what I'm trying to say is, we do have apartments now, but I don't think that that's where Pleasant Valley seems to necessarily be going through our comprehensive plan.
Thank you, Frank. Now the second speaker will be Mrs. Mary Albrecht.
What I do know is that there are a tremendous amount of people looking for apartments in Pleasant Valley. Whether we have the space or the area to grow in that department, I don't really know off the top of my head, to be very honest with you. So that is something that all of us have been speaking about, and is something that we're going to have to look back on the comprehensive plan for, see if there was anything in there specifically for that, and then move forward from there. I also, which you'll hear often tonight, believe that we have a lot of people in Pleasant Valley that could help us tremendously in this field, that have the expertise to advise us, and that's the direction I'd like to go in.
Thank you, Mary. The third speaker, who's running for town board, as Mary was, is Mike Reifenberg.
Thank you for the question. I think, sorry. It's a great question. I think it really boils down to, if I'm elected as a town council member, it's my responsibility to represent you, the residents. So my first question is there a need for more apartments? Do we currently have residents who are looking to potentially sell their home and downgrade and want to not have to worry about a mortgage payment or have to mow their lawn? Those are questions that need to be asked, and I honestly don't know the answer to that. I've personally lived in an apartment coming out of high school and with my first couple jobs. I do know, though, that our comprehensive plan lays out where higher density and apartments and condos should be placed within our town. And that's within the hamlet zoned areas for residential. So my opinion is that if there is a need, it should happen within the currently zoned areas that they can build in. because when we start rezoning areas for higher density homes outside of the hamlet, it doesn't follow the comprehensive plan because it strictly states that any kind of high density homes like that require sidewalks and infrastructure and water, and we are a town without a central water system or anything like that. We run on wells, so there's a lot of moving parts to that. Also, if we start rezoning areas to bring a ton more people in that's not built within our current zoning, it's going to require more services. You know, the schools are going to have more people in them. Taxes are going to go up, and personally, I don't want to be taxed out of Pleasant Valley, and I don't think I want to see seniors moving away because they can't afford the taxes. So at the end of the day, my job, if elected, is to represent you, the residents. If there's a need for more apartments, we need to look into that.
Thank you, Mike. The fourth speaker is Mrs. Carol Campbell.
Thank you for the question. I have a little bit of a different take, I believe, than my other candidates. I think our community is inundated with apartments, and while I understand that we should look to see if, you know, we could fill that need in our community, I've lived in Pleasant Valley my whole life, and I understand that people like the open community that we have, but I also understand that there are times we have to make hard choices where we might not be living in that open community that they like. I would prefer to see condos. I think that condos would be better suited. I think that sometimes the apartments bring the tax base down. I think condos would help us increase our tax base. And I also think that apartments can be a drain on the services that we have in town. So while I understand and I agree with the others that we need to look at the comprehensive plan, I personally would like to see condos. I think they fit better into some of our communities and would help our tax base. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, Dan Deegan, county legislator, candidate. I think I'm not sure if that question's phrased in the sense that we have too many apartments or we don't have enough. But what I can tell you from knocking a boatload of doors, there's a ton of houses that have 20-year-old, 20-somethings that had to move back home with mom and dad, and there's a bunch of houses that had their parents move back in with them. That's also a thing that we need to consider why that is. And it could be a bunch of the options here, but that's something that I've seen more than anything else, is that there's a whole lot of folks moving back in because they're having trouble finding a place to live.
Thank you, Dan. Does anybody else want to make a comment on it? We have separate questions for the other candidates, so now we'll continue with the town board and supervisor questions. Second question is, what is your vision for the future town hall? Do you favor updating the 1903 Route 44 location or selling the 1903 Route 44 location and obtaining a new location? If a new location, what does the property look like? So we'll ask Frank to give his opinions as well as the town supervisor.
So, contrary to popular belief, actually, I am of the belief that we should renovate and make 1903 the future home for Town Hall. Early on, the town was approached by two interested parties. That's really why we sent out an RFP to sell the building, because they offered more money than the town, paid for it. So it seemed like, at the time, a decent idea. We sent out the RFP, no one responded, so Mary and I had met up at the building with some construction professionals and engineers to talk about water. The topographic layout of that property really funnels water down towards that building, so water is a concern. So we met, there's plenty of drainage in the parking lot, most of which needs to be cleaned because of just lack of maintenance from the years, but yes, 1903 is a viable, or should be a viable home for our next town hall. And what does that look like? without a bunch of engineers and plans, I couldn't really tell you, but I do. It should have a community space as well as hopefully a home for the food pantry.
Thank you, Frank. Next is Mrs. Mary Albrecht.
I completely agree with Frank. We met there. I learned more in an hour from these people that gave their time freely to us than I had heard about in 2 years. So I also think it's a very viable option. There are new systems in place that can be updated on that building that right now currently are back from like 35 years ago, but all of those things can all be taken care of. The infrastructure is a very critical point where that building is concerned due to water coming off the hill and water in general. I really, after speaking to these other people, I really feel that that's the option for us to go with, is to stick with 1903.
Thank you, Mary. Next speaker is Mike Reifenberg.
So speaking with a lot of residents, it seems like the majority of the residents out there feel like they didn't have a say, or they feel like we shouldn't have purchased this building in the first place. I've talked to people who have worked in that building. There's water issues. There's people that went to the gym there, and the showers and the toilets didn't work properly. But at the end of the day, we need to work together and make this happen. That's beyond us at this point. So I can tell you that I will work with whoever on the board to make sure that 1903 happens, and it happens sooner than later. I believe the vision for it is obviously local offices for the municipality, but also being on the library board, we've seen that there's a huge need for community space within our community. And I would love to see, besides just the library, the town to take on larger rooms, potentially have a 5-day-a-week senior program instead of just on 1 day, and also find a new home for our food pantry as somebody that's used it in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Next is Mrs. Carol Campbell, who's going to speak also on the same topic.
I think that's a great question. I also am in favor of making 1903 Route 44 the location for the new town hall. I've spoke at some recent board meetings about that. The recent flooding of Katy Field during Hurricane Ida is a reminder that we need to relocate our town hall sooner rather than later. I went to the meeting that former Supervisor Mark Figliozzi had, where the consultant and the town were comparing the purchase of 1903 Route 44 to the existing town hall. At that time, I had a lot of questions, but all of them were answered in this presentation. So I go back to that presentation, and I came away with a feeling that it was a good purchase. The building was purchased, I believe, through a Climate Smart Communities grant. I do have some concerns about whether if we sold the building, there would be a problem with the grant. It was looked at by 3 engineers before it was purchased. I have concerns that it's been off the tax roll for the last 3 years. And I've not been inside the building. I don't have firsthand knowledge of the engineering that's been done. I did talk with someone who was recently in the building and was told that there was no visible mold. It looked close to being ready, move-in ready with some improvements. The town, I believe, is even storing some records there. So I'm against the sale of the building. I feel strongly that we should do our due diligence and move forward and get in there as soon as we can. I agree with each one of the members running for town board that we need to have the space. The court can no longer operate. I can't say no longer operate, but there's an accident waiting to happen in the court space. Thank you.
Can I just add something for an extra minute to that? Just to add a little clarifying. Nothing. The grant is transferable. Just so it's a myth we've been hearing going door to door. The myth. So the grant for that building, that was the grant that the town received. The town actually hasn't received the money yet. The town used money that we had in the coffers to pay for that building. Once we start renovating and spend the money, we will then, it's a matching grant, so we'll get that money back. But that's good until 2025. That's been extended till 2025. And yes, we are storing records there, but I don't think that building is close to move-in ready at all, because the prior supervisor, after you, Carol, removed all the heating and cooling from the building. So there's no way to heat it, there's no way to cool it, and the second floor I don't believe has electric. So.
Frank, you're up on that one.
So I am a soccer coach through Pleasant Valley Recreation Soccer. I also coach basketball when we could play basketball before COVID. I also I donate some time to the Boy Scouts. I was just actually I gave them a tour of Town Hall yesterday and answered some of their questions. And the local food bank, actually, through COVID, Mary and I had done a bunch of work with. We went to Restaurant Depot just to stock up on stuff that they needed. So yeah, I would say that I'm pretty involved in the community. Would have a good, ear to the heartbeat of what's going on in Pleasant Valley.
Thank you, Frank. Mary Albrecht, Mrs. Mary Albrecht?
I also have volunteered for several different things outside of the town hall as far as my councilperson job at the moment. I've been on the Festival of Lights Committee for several years, the Pleasant Valley Weekend Committee for several years. Outside of that, I have been the past president of Dutchess ARC, and I'm always just looking for something else that I can help somebody with. Like Frank said, the food pantry has needed help. We started a program with it with Festival of Lights like 3 years ago, and that has not stopped once. All the bins are still in front of the firehouse in Pleasant Valley and up in Saw Point. They bought special bins for them. My husband and I go there, pick up the food sometimes, or Tom Murphy picks it up, brings it up to the food pantry. So we're making sure that the people in our town during these hard times get the help they need.
Thank you, Mary. Mike Reifenberg?
Yeah, so growing up in the town and only being 34 years old, it wasn't that long ago when I was a kid in this town. And, I can tell you that we have work to do. Growing up, when I got maybe in middle school and I was 13, 14 years old, I remember that there wasn't much that the town offered besides what the school offered. But I grew up in scouting. I grew up doing a lot. But the last 2 years, I'm a trustee on the Pleasant Valley Free Library. It means a lot to me. I probably wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for the library. And I think something like that is a staple of our community, and we need to keep building upon that. So I volunteer on that library board. I'm also on the Pleasant Valley Board of Assessment Review. I'm also an alternate sportsman that represents Dutchess County for the New York State DEC Fish and Wildlife Management Board, which really means a lot to me as well, growing up fishing the Wappingers Creek. I think we have a lot of potential, and I've learned a lot of tapping into a natural resource that we have here in our town. We could potentially use that more. And I am also on the Pleasant Valley Planning Board here in town. So I have a 12-month-old daughter at home. I can tell you right now, I'm one of the many reasons why I'm involved is I want to make sure Pleasant Valley is a good place to raise my daughter, and I hope that when she grows up and she's tasked with deciding where she wants to live, that she won't second guess raising her family here in Pleasant Valley.
Thank you, Mike. The final speaker on this topic is Mrs. Carol Campbell.
I think this is a good question. I think volunteerism is very, very good. It makes our community a better community without a doubt. Unlike some of the people here, my children are grown. They went through softball programs. I now have a grandson that plays baseball. So I think that community is great, and that's part of it. I volunteered this year on the 200-year celebration for Pleasant Valley. I was happy to help out with that. And as a former member of the Pleasant Valley Rotary, we did many good things here in Pleasant Valley by volunteering. We did Stuff the Bus. We did a coat drive. We did turkey dinners for those in need, and volunteered to pick out toys and coats for children for Christmas. So I think volunteerism is good, and I also worked on the Festival of Lights when I was supervisor. So thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Sorry, Fred, may I also make a statement about this question?
Yes,
if that's
that's
okay. And I'll be less than a minute, I promise, or we'll try. I love this question. As a lifelong volunteer myself, I've actually volunteered longer than Michael's been alive, and that's kind of fun to say. I began as a middle school student and high school student volunteering in the community where I grew up, which very much mirrored Pleasant Valley. We didn't have much to do, and the library actually provided a lot of the programming and the services that I was able to volunteer for. Through that experience, what I learned is that we need more volunteer and more civic engagement in schools, and that's something that I'm hoping to bring into this district, not just in Pleasant Valley and Amenia, where I currently live, but also in Washington and Millbrook. So I encourage the person that wrote this question to please reach out to me on Facebook, Danny for District 25, because I would love to learn more about what are the needs specifically for volunteerism or volunteer opportunities in our area. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Can I jump in on that too?
Yes.
I don't want to miss the fun. So I think ethics matters on the county level too. Volunteerism. I'm a coach with PV Rec and basketball. I volunteer at the food banks. I'm blown away by the kindness of this community. We have 2 food banks. That's something to be said. I volunteered at the Food Bank of the Hudson Valley, Dutchess Outreach. Coaching, what I've learned about coaching, which is amazing, and I learned it during COVID, the impact that it has on the kids is amazing. The impact it has on the parents is amazing. It's hard to have a problem with your neighbor who you've never met, who you know who's on the other side of the aisle, when you stand on the sidelines on Saturdays and you both root for your kids. The more community we can get, the more teams we can have. It's not just sports. I tend to be sports-centric, but there's all kinds of programs. The more you can force people to sit in the same room and have common ground, the more you can start breaking down barriers. So I think it's critical.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, as I promised, we'll go have a question for the town justice position there, which Michael Kozak hopefully will answer. The question is, our current court space, and again, this is not my opinion, this is the writer of the letter, our current court space is not up to standards. What would you like to see accomplished, and what will you do to address this?
Thank you for the question. In terms of the court space, hopefully, the town hall is going to relocate, and that's been discussed, at length here and previously, and if that happens, I would assume that the court facility would be upgraded. I came into this position, and I've learned that the court is basically, the facility itself is outdated. The courtroom itself is small. The fixtures, the materials, the furniture, file cabinets, printers and scanners. Things are, I have done my very best to apply the law as it's written and as it's
The first part is making sure that people know the legislator exists. That's a question that I get more frequently than I care to admit on doors. People they don't know necessarily about it, and then they ask me the same question on the doors. I think it needs to work bottoms up. So I think I've seen in other town meetings where I think the way this ecosystem works is folks get an update on what the county's doing. I think that's backwards. I think the point of the legislator is you get involved in the town, you work with folks, you communicate, you keep the pathway open, even if you don't necessarily agree with everything you're hearing, and then you go back to the county and you go get those resources back and you bring it back home. I think that's the whole point of it. And I think in some regards, that's why folks don't necessarily know what the legislator actually acts for. Secondly, I think we need to open up communication. So I will commit in my first 100 days, but I'll do it regularly. I'll commit to office hours. We'll have to figure out where we do that. I don't know if it's at the town hall or if it's just at a local business. But committing to office hours where someone can come and talk and figure out what they need and let me know the problems, because that's the other thing. I think people are feeling like they're not heard. And if they're not heard, there's a problem with
Dan Deegan in
Dan
District
Hudnick.
2,
I'm getting
absolutely,
mixed up.
and
Yeah,
Danny
Dan
Hutnick
Hudnick's
for
next.
District 25. A great way to remember that. Dan's shorter, 2. Danny's longer, 25. And, similarly, getting out into the community and knocking on doors before I broke my hand, meeting people and feeling similarly that they didn't know that the legislature existed or they felt that they were being quizzed in a civics class. It's a great question, and I love when people ask that, because the reality is the role of the county legislature is to make sure that the county itself runs smoothly, and that the promises, whether it's through the county contracts or the concerns that we go to the door-to-door and listen and hear, that we bring that up to the legislature and we put that into action. For me, specifically, I don't know all the intricacies of this role, and I'll be very honest, I don't know that anyone in the legislature knows all the intricacies of this role, because it really is that diverse. There are needs in our area. People that I've met have talked to me about the need for a dog park, to the need to resolve what's going on with the placement of town hall and the roadways and the water management and so on. So I think that it is about you, the voters, the locals, my neighbors, and your concerns, and us. My responsibility, Dan's responsibility, is to elevate your voice. Right? We're in this public service position. It's a service. It is a service position. This is not a position of power. This is your voice through the seat that we will hold. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Second question, we're going to stick with you two for a minute, that we received was, what are your thoughts on the sale of Camp Notuming, as well as senior affordable housing? Because that's two questions.
what he thought about his team's execution, and he said, I'm all for it. When it comes to parks, I'm all for it. What I've seen in my time coming to town board meetings and watching, there's debates about parks, there's debates about recreation here or there, A or B, and the kids aren't getting anything. I'm all for something. That's what I'm for. So Camp New Teaming looks amazing. It looks like an amazing facility that we can be proud of. Having a kid that plays soccer traveling, I'm starting to get tired of going to these other towns. I was in Saugerties 2 weeks ago. The facility, if anybody's been to that thing, it's amazing. All these towns, you can list them off that are local, that have community centers and fields and places where elders, kids, and everybody in between can go and hang out, ride bikes, walk their dog, blah, 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 blah. We have options here. We just need to act on it. So the status quo needs to get thrown out. No is not a policy. If somebody doesn't want to do Plan A, then let's do Plan B or let's do Plan C. So New Teaming, I'm all for it. It looks amazing. How are we going to do it? And that's not to be a skeptic. That's not to throw mud at people and say, well, you had this idea, now I'm going to poo-poo it. I'm tired of that too. If there's a way to do it, if the county takes it over and it's a county park, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. Let's do it. I would just want to know the details of it. As far as the senior housing, I think I answered this already, but there's definitely this is an American situation. This is an American challenge that we're running into. This is not one unique to New York, Pleasant Valley, or Dutchess County. But there's a reason why folks are having to move back in with their kids. We've become used to that. That's become normalized, and that's a problem. So if we need more housing, we need to figure that out. But mom and dad, there should be a place for them to go that doesn't have to be in our basement. And that's you figure that out with open office hours and talking to people and figuring out what people need. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan. not a question that was asked.
Okay.
But
Just,
I think
I'm
you-
just curious. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't have it on. I'm sorry.
This is under Parks and Recreation. What is your plan to improve our recreation facilities and parks? And more specifically, what is your plan, if any, to purchase the Camp Netuming property should it become available? So let's start with Frank on that one.
Thank you.
I was going to offer Carol, if you want to go in reverse. I've been going first the whole time. If you want to go first, feel free.
What a gentleman.
Chivalry is not dead.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to a lot of board meetings, and we've talked at length about Camp Netuming. We even had County Legislator Don Sagliano in at one point talking about it. I've lived in Pleasant Valley my whole life. Of course, I remember the scout camp. And I took a ride through there recently and was shocked by the development that has taken place. A sports complex with artificial turf, showers, bathrooms, a baseball field, 2 swimming pools, other buildings, and a lake. Many of the buildings have electric. I'm in agreement if the towns have the funds to purchase it. I'd feel it'd be a wonderful place for the young and the old to enjoy. My only concerns about, purchasing it would be the cost to maintain it and the cost involved with hiring additional staff and equipment, which could be quite costly. I also feel that because we have so many parks to maintain, and one that's still undeveloped, which is Rettle Park, which has been talked about for many years, that we would have to take those other parks into consideration if we purchase this. I did hear that Dutchess County was considering purchasing it, and that might be a good option for us because we would have access to it and maybe not the costs that are associated with it. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Do you want to go now, Frank, or you want to let Mary? Yeah. Oh, okay, Mike.
Simmer down over there. So Camp Netuming has a special place in my heart. I grew up volunteering at Camp Netuming as a Boy Scout. I've spent many weekends up there. You probably have as well, drinking bug juice and making fires and whatnot. And it is a gigantic camp. And I am wholeheartedly behind keeping it as a camp or open space. The worst case scenario would be it gets developed, and I would not want to see that. So whatever we can do as a town to keep it the way it is now, we should be doing that. As Carol said, I find it very difficult with the camp having over 15 structures and basically having an army of scouts maintaining it over the years, that the town would be able to upkeep this in the long run. So I'm fully supportive of the county taking over this park and potentially purchasing it. If the town could do it, I would love to see that. I just think in the long run, this would be better off. They have the resources and they have the know-how of maintaining a park this size. To give you an idea, Camp Netuming is almost the size of Bowdoin Park in Wappingers. That's a very large park, and there's a full-time staff of people who maintain that park. So, and when it comes to all the other parks in town, I would love to see us. I just saw and read the 185-page recreation plan for the town. Have all of our current council members read that? All the plans are there. We just need to act upon them and be forward-thinking, figure out where to get the money and the grants, and let's all work together and not make rec political and do what's right for our kids and community.
I am in complete agreement with doing something with that. Michael put it very, very eloquently, is that we would like to keep it the way it is. My son is an Eagle Scout. He spent hours and hours and hours up there. It is a phenomenal place. I truly believe it's much too large for us to take care of in the town of Pleasant Valley. I think that we have parks that have to have a lot of work done on them, and we need to focus on that. But I am all for the county purchasing that property to keep it in the current state that it's in right now, which is for all the kids, for maybe the Boy Scouts to do the soccer and all of that. With that said, there are several things that I think as town residents we need to keep an eye on. And that is the fact that there are probably about 5 different roads that lead into Camp No Teaming. Out of those 5 roads, some of them are very narrow and very windy. I think we would have to work with the county and help them in trying to figure out how we should move forward with that type of situation. The other thing is I, in the past here, not that long ago, on the board, you know that we had a conversation about a shooting range. I am not for any kind of shooting range at Camp No Teaming. I think there are too many homes around there. I think it would be extremely noisy for all the residents that are there now. There's one gentleman in particular that has animals very, very close to it. I raise sheep, so I know that if they started to see, an AK go off, they'd be off too. So I just feel that those are things that we have to keep an eye on. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Frank Masello, you want to answer that?
I've spent many, many summers at Camp New Teaming as a kid. I, as a former Boy Scout, I'm an Eagle Scout. I love that camp. It brings, going back up there just recently with the rec committee, it was interesting. Some of the buildings I remember as a kid, some of them are brand new. It was definitely jogging some memories of drinking bug juice and catching fireflies and working on my whittling badge and all that. As far as our recreation as a whole, we really need to put money into our parks. We need to really maintain them. We've never, year after year, we've never really put money into making sure that the infields of all the ball fields don't have crabgrass in them, or maintaining that for the rest of the year. Or I remember when I coached Little League, I had to bring my lawnmower and I had to have the visiting coach pull weeds so the kids can see out the dugout and we can actually play a game. That's not how this should be. We need to put money into our parks. We need to manage our parks. We need to maintain our parks. I mean, Sandy does a great job, but through the maintenance staff and everything else, we need to really maintain the parks that we have before we really could enact more of the rec master plan and really hopefully develop Reddle or hopefully develop something else. As far as Camp New Teaming, though, I do think that I would love to see it become a county park. I don't think the town has...
...is that we received, please address your stance on any expansion and/or rezoning of the land surrounding the current quarrying operations owned and operated by Peckham Materials on North Avenue. Will candidates support the restrictions placed on the land
they have so that I can make a very educated decision on the quarry? Right now, I don't have enough education on it to be able to say yes or no.
Okay, thanks, Mary.
Why is there zoning? What's the point of zoning? And it really comes down to zoning protects us, the residents, and it protects business owners in our town. So let me give you an example. You live in a residentially zoned area. Zoning stops your neighbor from knocking down their house and building a mobile gas station, right? Which would then affect the value of your home when you go to resell it. So I'm not against any business in this town. Businesses are good. But at the same time, we should not, my belief is, rezone areas at the detriment of residents that maybe put their life savings into a home. Let's all face it, if you own a home, that's probably your largest investment in your life. And I don't think as a local government, we should not take the position to potentially affect your largest investment. I also, as a planning board member, when we have conversations with applicants in open board meetings and minutes that we approved and maps that we approved, my hope is that when I'm not here anymore, somebody will say, you know what, they had the facts, they had the conversations, and they came up with a decision that these restrictions should be on that piece of property. So if it's true, I've seen it, that there's restrictions on the property, that it should not ever be zoned quarry, then I think it's simple as that. And I don't, at the end of the day, Peckham took over the quarry from Dutchess Quarry, and they knew the way the zoning was. So I don't know if us as a town should be stepping in to potentially hurt residents. I just can't see that happening.
Thank you, Mike. Ms. Carol Campbell. Ms. Carol Campbell, you're next.
Excuse me, I have a tickle. The quarry. John Arborio founded the quarry in 1937, and in 2012 it was sold to Peckham. I've lived in Pleasant Valley my whole life, and I'm an area of the town that basically wasn't affected by the operation of the quarry. I became familiar with the quarry operation when I was a planning and zoning secretary in the town, and Peckham Industries when I was councilman and woman and supervisor. I've spoken to many residents in the last few months who told me that their quality of life is being severely impacted by the quarry. Peckham chooses to ignore the hours of operation, which are 7 a.m. to 3:30, that was agreed to when the town granted them a special use permit to upgrade their existing plant facility. Excuse me. And the town refuses to enforce it. Their C&D business, which is not a permitted use in the quarry district, has increased the number of trucks traveling through our town. I'm sorry. Causing more noise, and the number of trucks traveling risk of fatality happening at the intersections. I sat at Dunkin' Donuts the other day and counted 15 trucks. I understand the zoning laws and what needs to be done to enforce them. I will honor the restrictions put on by the planning board and filed by the Dutchess County Clerk's office. And I will vote no on land proposed for rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you.
A big problem with this, and we've talked about this, a really big problem, I think, with zoning per se, is that there's no real clear path as to how someone would go and, say, get their property rezoned. And that's something that I think that we plan to fix if elected next year, just because there's no clear cut. I mean, the last time Peckham came in, they gave us a petition to rezone, so there's no issue. Unfortunately, just due to some meetings and whatnot that we have had, I can't really comment on this issue, unfortunately, just because of what has been talked about in executive session. Unfortunately, that's the answer I have to give at this point.
Yeah. Okay. So does Carol want to make any comments?
Yeah.
Oh, Mary.
I'll tell you right now, if I put a shed 1 inch too close to my property line, I'd probably be in trouble for that. So if they're operating outside of the hours of the permit, if that is the case, then yeah, isn't that the point of
front of me about this and it's explained to me appropriately, I am not able to comment on it.
Was there anyone else that I...
Town, under a special use permit, gave gave the quarry specific operating hours. I have heard from and talked to a number of residents who tell me that the hours aren't being followed. We seem to think of the quarry operation as impacting people that live near the quarry, but I've talked to people from Bower Road to all the way out in Salt Point that are affected by the trucks. I think that the town can't ignore the amount of traffic, large truck traffic, that is being caused by the quarry. I think that North Ave, especially in the hamlet, is an accident waiting to happen. It's impossible sometimes to even walk on the sidewalks with the trucks going by. I'd like to see a weight restriction on North Avenue. I know a lot of people say it's a county road, you can't do it, but I think the town needs to do its due diligence to make sure that we, protect our residents. When we put those sidewalks in, I think we need to have it be a walking community. So I have seen the maps. And I know that they are filed. I was a former planning board secretary, and I understand. I even knew the former owner of the parcels that they're trying to rezone. So I'm not against Peckham. I'm not against business in town. I don't want anybody to feel that, but I think that I've heard a lot about it, so I'd like to have them in compliance. I'd like a zoning administrator that brings them in compliance, and I would like to make sure that we don't entertain. They've been in 4 times now for a rezoning. I think enough is enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Many for recreation, fishing, swimming, wildlife, and pets. The creek also runs through 3 of our town parks. How is this affecting our drinking water, as we do not have central water and we are dependent on our wells for our water? What will you do to measure the environmental impact of the quarry on our air, water, roads, and hold them to higher standards? This is a very important issue for health and well-being of our residents. So, nobody talk to that?
I guess I'll go first. So I've been working with Bard College to bring some air testing or air monitoring to Pleasant Valley, which is we're just so close to wheels off the ground. So that way we can actually people that think that they're or know that the air or whatever, we can monitor that live data through Bard's website, or through Bard College rather, and they also plan to install a weather station with, also using the weather station at Peckham. They are kind enough to allow us to use their weather station to get some data from them, as well as I believe Bard wanted to install a second one in the town here. So we do plan to use some resources or some free resources through the college to put some things in check or to display some myths. Either way, just to know what is the quality of our air here in Pleasant Valley.
Emails back and forth with Bard to get the air quality tested in the area, and they're going to do it, like he said, in several locations. As far as the water issue, it was brought to my attention and my understanding that that was an issue back when Duchess Quarry was there, but it has nothing to do with what Peckham has done. So I don't know what type of testing has been done since then, and I wouldn't want to speculate on that, on what kind of testing has been done on the water.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, Mike, do you have any comments on this? I don't.
Yeah, so if they were fined and cited for dumping stuff into the creek, I think obviously there should be some consequences to that if that happened. So I think the DEC is probably responsible for making sure they look into the long-term effects of that. As a person who fishes the creek, how has it affected the habitat of the trout and the natural, the up north of the dam, we have a natural occurring trout population. How is it affecting all of that? It's good to see that the town is starting to do the air study, and that Bard was gracious enough to do that. I think we're moving in the right direction. Would we have wanted this done maybe a year or two ago? Sure. But it's happening, and we just have to be supportive of it. And we'll find out what the results are after these studies are done, but they need to happen.
I was happy to see the town do the air study with Bard. I've talked to a lot of residents that are very concerned about the health of the air quality around the quarry. I've talked to residents who can't go outside and use their areas because they're worried about the dust coming from the quarry. I talked to one gentleman who has to wash his garage down 3 times a year because of the dust from the quarry. So I'm interested to see how that Bard study comes out. But the one thing that I'm also concerned about is the water in the creek. I've talked to residents on Stream Lane who are deeply concerned about the water in the creek. Mike can tell you that we walked the creek in May with a couple of consultants who their nature is to look at the creeks and look at the habitat and see what's going on. They wanted to do a study. I think it was going to cost the town about $3,000, and for some reason, the town didn't put the study forward. I'd like to see that happen. Pleasant Valley is known for the creek. It's what defines us, and I think that it's imperative that the residents in town know if there has been any contaminants in the creek from the quarry, whether it be in the past when it was owned by Dutchess Quarry, or whether it be in the future. That really needs to be addressed as to how it's been affected. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Kind of scenario that I was talking about before. This is what the legislator's for. So this water issue seems to have been going on in this town since the beginning of the time. 2 years ago, people were talking about this on both sides. In fact, if you had watched that meeting 2 years ago, you wouldn't have known what side people were representing, because everybody kind of sounds the same about this. There's grant money that has been available out there. I shouldn't say grant money. This is a good example of the COVID relief money that came into the county. What's been eye-opening to me is knocking doors with folks, and how many folks have not heard about the expenditure at Dutchess Stadium. It's alarming. So a program like that, that money that was sent to us, $16 million came in, and roughly a little over $12 million was spent on Dutchess County Stadium upgrades. For the record, I'm not against that. I think we need places to go. We need revenue. We need tourism. We need places to bring our own kids. But I think my problem with it is the order that it was done. I think that should have been done afterwards. That money was geared for infrastructure upgrades, like the question is asking. It was for essential workers. It was for small business. And instead, we chose to upgrade a locker room and build a party deck for a team that's owned by the Yankees. We can argue on the merits of that, but I won't I won't accept the order that was done, and that should have been done, but at the end. That's what that money was for. So 100% I would fight for that. The reason why this election matters, there's another $40 million that's come into this county. I'm going to fight for that because maybe, just once, this is for capital expenditures. That's what that money is for. Maybe now we can finally get that done by using that money for what it was intended for. And the fact that so many people don't know about that expenditure at Dutchess County Stadium is startling to me. So hopefully all y'all watching at home, now you know. Look it up. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. I'm going to add in one quick thing. I was on the town board in the 1970s, and it was an issue back then for the water in Pleasant Valley. So, Dan Deegan, do you want to? Oh,
Thanks, Dan. Dan Deegan, thank you. Danny Hutnick, District 25. Also, again, running alongside Dan Deegan in District 2 for Pleasant Valley. I think that it is, it's kind of startling, and thank you for bringing that up, that in 1970, that was a conversation happening then, and that it's still happening now. I think that the question as well, the fact that you are asking, can we, right? It's a yes, no. Can we resolve the water problem? I want to say yes. I want to say that the reason why we're all running is because we need to create change. To Dan's point, it's been more of the same and more of inaction. So yes, we will do everything that we can to ensure that some movement, some action happens, whether it's securing the money that's already allocated and ensuring that that money is going where it's supposed to be going, which thank you to Robin Lowe. Again, a great question, and I don't want to add words if the inclusiveness is related to the county legislature and specifically here in Pleasant Valley. And I think that just my being, I am not familiar with all of the candidates throughout the district and our current legislature in terms of their demographics, but as a Latino gay male, I think that for me it is a testimony just in my presence in throwing my hat in the ring. Something that has been near and dear to me personally, but politically and professionally, is reaching out and saying, hey, I see you. So an individual with a disability, which we haven't really heard too much from the questions or from the responses, we certainly have heard about the aging. And I know that, for example, my mother, who is blind, who is of a certain age, and can't access housing and can't access medical services in this area. So I have to drive 4 hours to see her and handle that way out in Suffolk County, Long Island. So I think that's indicative of how I would bring inclusivity and raising the awareness that other people like me, who are proud union members working hard to support ourselves, our community, and looking to advocate for the needs of others in our area. I had a Pride ride back in June for Pride Month, and the locals that came out to support that event, I feel like what they were really doing was saying, hey, I'm here. Please see me, represent me, acknowledge me, and raise awareness about me. And so I will absolutely work with you. And again, Danny for District 25 on Facebook, please reach out to me and let me know what are your concerns. I have my own concerns as a future parent in this area, and I'm hoping that in this position I'll be able to raise those concerns together with you. Thank you.
Issue before, we're just going to blame you guys for not getting this done 50 years ago. That's the problem. So this is a big one. So inclusiveness. So number one, in the legislature, Dutchess County, I don't know if folks know this, Dutchess County is 50% female, 50% women. The legislature has 24% representation. Hats off to the women that are in there. They're trailblazers, but 6 out of 25 is unacceptable. It's not reflective of the county, period. In this area, women represent 53%. We have 1 out of 5 on the board. I'm glad there's 2 women here tonight, but we have to have every level of government needs to represent the people that live there. So hats off to Mary for carrying the torch. I'm sure it's not easy. Hats off to Carol for you being here tonight. But that's just one level of inclusiveness. 9% of homes in Pleasant Valley specifically recognize English as their second language. I see this when I go out and I knock doors. The reason inclusivity matters is because when we're leaving these kids out, we are leaving astronauts, future Olympians, future surgeons. We're leaving them out. We're missing out. There's Mozarts that are in those communities that we're ignoring. So we're losing by not involving people. Diversity, it goes down a lot of different avenues, and people have their mindset of what they think diversity is. But diversity of thought and background and ideas, maybe the reason we've never gotten this water thing done is because we got the same type of people trying to fix the same problem. Maybe you need some creativity from other experiences. And maybe every single issue we've had, if we had different opinions from different life experiences, we'd get more things done. So that's why it's critical. Some other stats, and as far as inclusivity. 1, I launched my campaign in the trailer park down the street from my house. That wasn't an act. That wasn't a show. It was a test because I wanted to see if this movement that I'm trying to create, that's a rainbow coalition of people from all different backgrounds and all different everythings, if we could speak to them. And we could. It was amazing. So that's the whole point. It's not just the likelihood of what people think diversity and inclusivity is. It's way of life. It's the way folks look. It's the way people think. And I'm 100% supporting of it. And we got to do more of it. The first thing is getting committees, right? So we have town board. We should have more than 1 woman. We should have more than 2 women running. But as far as sitting elected officials, we got to reflect the population. Sorry, I rambled.
Thanks. Thanks, Dan. We have one more question. It's, why do you feel you are qualified for that position? Pretty general.
Thank you. Well, I mean, the easiest answer is I'm the town judge currently, so to give a little context, I volunteered for this position because I felt it important to be involved in Pleasant Valley and in my community. I felt like I had something to offer. I'm a lawyer by background. I feel like I've had a tremendous career. I've been recognized as one of the top litigators in New York State for a number of years. I have my own law practice. I've won up to 10 appeals. I've conducted and won up to 20 trials. It's a practice that I love, and I think I'm good at it. And I felt like I could bring something to this position and, serve the community. I didn't know if there was anybody else that was going to step up and volunteer for the position, but I felt like I had something to offer and that I could bring, some quality to the work. So that's why I think I'm qualified.
Thanks. Now we're going to go back. We currently have 3 vapor shops in town. With the anticipation of forthcoming cannabis sales in New York State, should Pleasant Valley be opting in or out of the cannabis sales?
So I think, contrary to popular belief, we actually only have 2 vape shops. The one across from the post office never submitted for proper approvals, and I do believe that they were told that they could not open at this time. To speak to cannabis sales, the town board spoke about this at one of their meetings. We're of the belief that we need to do some work in zoning, in the sense of we really need to define cannabis use, cannabis consumption, because it's not defined in our current zoning codes. But that the revenue from this is appealing, in the sense that we should do the proper work and set up the proper committees to actually change our zoning codes so that it doesn't affect the way of life in Pleasant Valley, but we still offer it, because, I mean, a potential revenue is roughly about a little under $500,000 a year, which for a town our size is quite game-changing. So.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate what Frank just said. We do have 2 shops, with obviously the possibility of a 3rd one opening up. I don't know how I truly feel about it, except that when they started telling me about the income from the sales tax on it, I mean, we have to do monetarily for our town what we need to do. If it's all legalized and we can do that and we can sell it, then we have to seriously think about opting in on this project. The other part of this is that if we had water in the town, we might not have this issue as much. We absolutely need to bring water to our town in order to have the businesses and the kind of businesses in our town that we would really like to see go forward.
Thanks, Mary. Mike?
So I think that I want to start with the fact that I think as a board, whoever's there on January 1st, and hopefully I'll be there, is we have to be more proactive. And I think this is a perfect topic where we really need to be forward thinking as a board and as a town, and not as reactive. Because this is a perfect example of, if we're not planning for the future, we're not planning 2 years down the road, we can find ourselves with no zoning to actually regulate. Are people allowed to use within the shop? Are people allowed to, is it allowed to be, in a mixed use zoning, or is it going to be specifically in the hamlets where it would make more sense? The next thing I have to say is, as an airline pilot, this doesn't directly affect me. I can't partake in any of this. But at the same time, this is going to happen no matter what. So the question really is are we going to, people are going to purchase this either way. So are they going to purchase it here in Pleasant Valley and have some tax revenue come to the town? Or are they going to purchase it across town lines in LaGrange and then come back here and use it either way? So the argument isn't, are we going to have people driving around under the influence of marijuana? The conversation should be, how are we going to address this as a town to make it fit in with our community, and just be forward thinking. And that goes with a whole bunch of other things, but this is a perfect example of how we have to be looking 1, 5, 10 years down the road, which I really feel like a lot of the issues we have currently is the lack of planning, and I look forward to working with everybody.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
The board was discussing cannabis and the large amount of revenue that would come into the town. I agree with all the other candidates that it's hard to not look at the revenue, and it looks very attractive. I think we should consider that, but I agree with Mike on looking down the road. Our comprehensive plan, I believe, needs to have some work done on it. I know when I was supervisor, we were adding things to the comprehensive plan one at a time as they came up. this was probably another example where we'll be adding to it. My real concern with vape shops and selling cannabis in town is more with whether or not we would have cannabis lounges. I don't think we want to take that on, and that's something that we could handle in the comprehensive plan. I know the board talked about it when they had their meeting, and I would not want to see us have lounges in town where we have people using cannabis all night. But I think it is a good revenue stream. I think we should provide for it in the comprehensive code. And I would very much like to be on the board in January and work this through and with the other members. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Carol. This is another question for the town board and supervisor position. How would you involve residents in decision making?
So one of the things that we did, or that I fought for this year, was to reinstitute the rec committee. We need average residents, average Joe Blow residents who really want to get involved and need a place, right? We have committees for people that want to get involved and want to help out, because the 5 people that will make up whatever the town board is going to be on January 1st is really not enough. It never has been. I mean, like, we have all these subcommittees that we have created but never have done anything with, that are just honestly ripe for the picking. They're low-hanging fruit for us to just make those appointments, to actually get people involved, to get projects off the ground, to get things like town water going, or the town hall building renovated. It was striking to me to meet a gentleman at a door off of Martin Road who was on a town water committee years ago, and he talked about a town water plan that I've never even heard of or never seen. It was a totally different layout than the original map plan report that the town has now, and I've never seen or heard of water going in direction. You were there with me, Mary. It was eye-opening that we used to do that. We used to get residents involved. We need to bring that back. We need to bring back that sense of community for people. If people were involved with the planning stages, the implementation stage, it's almost like they take more onus of it, and it's more of a community-driven project rather than just the town board accomplishing a simple task. Thanks.
Thanks, Frank. Mary Albrecht?
On top of that, we have some very highly intelligent people in our town that we need to tap into, and I think are really willing to step up to the plate to help us. The board in Pleasant Valley of 5 people, let me tell you how much time it takes to do everything. Okay, it takes a lot of time. I spend a lot of time at the town hall helping out, trying to smooth things over with certain departments. I ran on the fact that I wanted things to be better for our employees, which I truly believe they are. They feel like they have a voice now because they can come and speak to us, to myself or to Frank Mazzella. I just feel that we should be tapping into these people for ad hoc committees, for the water, for the building, and all of these people that have backgrounds in these areas that can help us move forward. We're not Einsteins on this board. Okay? We can't make all of these really big decisions. We need help. We need people to run different committees, which we just had a fee committee. We have the recreation committee. There are probably at least 3 other committees I feel need to be set up. So I personally think that we need to reach out to anybody we can and get people to help in our town with volunteering. And I really think that they would step up to the plate.
Thank you, Mary. Mike?
Yeah, so I think as town council members, I think you're only as good as how well you're connected with the residents of your community. So I'll be honest, I don't have all the answers. I know I don't have all the answers, but just like Mary said, is I understand that we live in a community with such diverse backgrounds and amazing people, but a lot of people just don't know how to get involved. So a couple things I've done over the last couple years since I've really gotten involved in this is I've been at town board meetings before we had any video recordings. And I've stood up there and asked for it to be live broadcast and to be recorded. And look at us now. It took COVID and a pandemic to get there, but Frank and Mary and the rest of the board, we're moving in the right direction. A lot of people, that wasn't here a year and a half ago. The contact information on the website. I was surprised that when I really started paying attention that we had no way of contacting our elected officials. The only way was to leave a voicemail at the town hall, and potentially when they swing by, they'll listen to them and get back to you. So now we have the emails on the website. I've been very active at town board meetings asking for the town to invest in software, and I know some town board members have been asking to invest in software that makes agendas and meeting minutes be present so residents know what's going to be at the meeting if they want to show up and participate, and they know what happened at the meeting. These are things that we need to do, and we need to make better. A couple things that I promise if I'm elected is something called Coffee with Mike. I think once a month, I go get a box of Joe and some donuts, and let's hang out and let me hear your thoughts and figure out what you want brought up at the town board meeting, because I believe 3 minutes at a town board meeting once a month is not enough for me to be in tune with what you want. I promise to make myself accessible, and I think we need to take the appointments of board members on other boards and committee members very seriously to bring a more diverse background. I'm out of time.
Thanks, Mike. Carol?
I like the idea of Coffee with Mike. When I was supervisor, I wanted to have town hall meetings. I was going to do something on a weekend. You know, we have a very diverse community where a lot of the residents that live out near the parkway, I kind of call it a little bit of our bedroom community, because they get up in the morning, they get on the parkway, they go to work, they come home, they have dinner, they put the kids to bed, they do it all over again. And so I have also been asking about the website, so I'd like to see that up and running. I agree with having committees. I know in the past when I was supervisor and even watching this board, they've had trouble filling some of the spots. They've advertised and advertised. I know myself, I've applied for a few and wasn't selected. So, you know, I think that we need to have help. I agree that not all 5 board members can do everything that needs to be done. It takes everybody in the community being involved. What's been really rewarding for me is watching the young residents in this community that have stepped up and volunteered and helped with improving our fields, painting our dugouts, that type of thing. And I think we need to continue to build that kind of atmosphere. And I think having people volunteer, I agree with Mary that we have a lot of very smart people in town that would like to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. With that, we're going to wrap the meeting up. We're going to have the last closing statements from each person, and it's 1 minute, and we're going to do it in reverse order from what we did the opening. So, Carol, you're the first one to do your final statement.
I want to again thank the Community Action Network. I think that this was a great time tonight. I love hearing from my other candidates that are running. I'm a voter too. I'm a registered Republican who received the endorsement of the Dutchess County Conservative Party because of my experience in government and conservative principles. I believe in lowering taxes, fiscal responsibility, and smaller government. Everyone is struggling to do more with less, and government should be no different. Over the last 21 months, I have been an advocate for the residents, speaking out at town board meetings about subjects that residents have told me they are concerned about. Because of my experience and knowledge of the issues, I can start on day one to bring to completion the projects that greatly affect our town, such as new town hall and town water. I will work to resolve zoning issues concerning zoning and the quarry, and will vote no on the quarry rezoning. One of my strongest assets is working with others, and I will make it my top priority to work with other board members, no matter what their political party. I will never forget that I work for the residents and promptly answer all emails and return phone calls. I believe in honesty and transparency. It would be an honor to have your vote on the conservative line row C on Election Day, November 2nd.
Thank you, Carol. Next is Michael Kozak, Justice Kozak.
Thank you. I just want to thank the Pleasant Valley Community Network again and my fellow candidates. This has been a very enjoyable evening, particularly to hear from the community and get some questions and have an opportunity to speak to those questions. I've very much enjoyed my time serving as justice. As I said previously, you know, I volunteered for this position because I wanted to serve the community, not for any personal benefit, not because of any particular ambition, simply because I felt like I had something that I could offer. And as I said, I've enjoyed my time serving as justice. I've strived in my work to give everybody who comes before me a fair hearing as they deserve. I see my time is up already. In any event, I thank you again and ask that you vote for me on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thanks, Judge. Next is the legislative position, which is Danny Hudnick.
Thank you. You know, again, as I mentioned, over 34 years of community and human services as a social worker, and in my practice as a clinical school-based social worker, I'm currently working and plan to work within the school system to provide better social emotional learning supports and training for educators and counselors and social workers and teachers that will give them new sets of skills to working with the youth in our area. Also currently working and plan to continue working on building civic engagement, service learning in the community. Again, tonight we've heard so much about the young community members as well as the aging population in our area and the need to create a bridge between those two groups and provide better care for our environment. I'm also working and will continue to work with the local elected officials to create sustainable resources, right? Long-standing change for our aging community here in Dutchess County. And thank you. Again, this was a wonderful platform. Use the Danny for District 25 Facebook page to continue to send your concerns and questions and needs. Because of the injury, I am having difficulty getting out consistently, so if I can't make it to your door, I can definitely answer you with Facebook Messenger, or you can send me an email at danny@dannyhutnick.com. And thank you to the panelists, and thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thanks, Danny. Next is Mike Reifenberg.
Yeah, so I just want to start off by saying thank you to my fellow candidates. Thank you for showing up tonight and going on the record and answering these tough questions. I think it will mean a lot to the residents. I promise the residents of Pleasant Valley, if I'm elected, I'll be transparent, nonpartisan, and honest. I will listen to you no matter what your party affiliation is and every single member of our community. I ask for your support and vote. In supporting me, you can be assured that you'll have someone in your corner on the town board and make sure the residents always come first. I want to thank you, the resident, as well, for taking the time to learn about your candidates. Local elections matter, and I think it's really a difficult time to find out what each of us stand for, and I think that's why it's important that all of us are here tonight to just be transparent and open with you. So thank you for participating.
Thank you, Mike. Next is Mrs. Mary Albrecht, who's running for the town board.
Again, I'd like to thank Laura and the Community Network Group. We need a capable team to progress forward and work together for our town. We as a team understand that sometimes we need to cross party lines to make this all work. We need to move our town forward in a positive direction without having to increase taxes. We can have a new town hall. We can get the water for the betterment of our businesses. We can have all of those things if we work together. And remember, we are a town of 9,700 people, all of whom need us. We are community first. I would like everyone to understand that, as Dan said earlier, we have 53% women in Pleasant Valley. My presence on this board requires me to be patient and calming. I will continue to do that for all of you. I am also looking for more of a presence and leadership in our town to move forward with several projects. I feel the team I am running with can do just that. We have been meeting and will hit the ground running. We spend too much time worrying, comparing, and wishing. We need to count the blessings that we have because life is just too short. Remember what is important and please be kind.
Thank you, Mary. Next is Dan Diggin.
So thank you to everybody for this tonight. This was awesome. Also to the owners of this facility. Without you, we couldn't have done this. So thank you very much, brother. Just so everybody remembers, this is a customer service job.
The people of Pleasant Valley that I'll listen. I know I'm not perfect, but I will listen. I will sitting at a board meeting and getting screamed at versus having somebody come and sit and having coffee with. So much more can get done. So much more can get done. We have long stepped away from listening to each other, listening to other opinions, and honestly, that's why I'm running with a group of candidates who are from different parties. We need to get back to the business of putting community first and listening to each other's opinions. So much more gets done when we actually listen before we just throw our own 2 cents into the mix. But there is work to be done. If you elect me, when you elect me your next supervisor, Pleasant Valley needs to get ready to roll up their sleeves. We have a lot of work to be done on Town Hall. We have a lot of work to be done on the Town Water Project. We have a lot of work to be done on everything else in between. So vote November 2nd to make your community first. Thanks.